JP Alexander for the Rabid Dogs Unleashed. Today is Wednesday, January 12th, 2022. Today I'm going to be talking about the death of a company. I just saw a video on the death of the Packard Car Company in 1959. So I thought I would talk about a company I know of that died. I'm not going to go into the name of the company, really, except to say that I worked there 1986 to 1987, at which point where I think it didn't last much longer than when I worked there. It was around way before I started there and probably wasn't around much after I left there. It was a company on Long Island, New York, and they made slide machines. They actually made school products. They were a warehouse. They dealt mostly in. They made like slide machines when you slide show for school. These little machines, maybe this big, and they would show on a screen. When you were a kid, you used to see the slide. They used to show slides or whatever, and to a presentation in school. So they were selling. They made those. They used to manufacture those, sell those, and they sold school books. They put the books in like the wrap. They sold a lot of other things for schools. That's mostly what they were. And they were a warehouse. It was a big kind of warehouse near the train tracks. And years ago, trains used to, I guess, years ago, the trains used to stop there and, materials used to stop at the train and they used to offload them there into the place, and then trucks used to come in and unload a lot of things into the place. It was a lot of business way before I got there. By the time I got there, there was a few people working there. There was a few machinists working there and a few other people working. It was owned by this guy. I forget his name. His son worked there. His son was a little older than me, maybe a year or two older than me. His girlfriend worked there, who had worked there for years. Her daughter was working there. So there was a bunch of people who worked in there part-time. Kids would come in during the summer months and work, but there was really only a few people working there full-time. There was just this Irish guy, Bill, who was living in the States for about a year. I think he'd come over for about a year. He might have been an exchange student. I don't know. But, on a foreign exchange program. I don't know. But he worked there for maybe a good part of the time I worked there. So when I went there, I didn't have experience doing a lot. I had previously worked at McDonald's. I started there, I was 20, and I left, I was 21. So I wasn't even old enough to drink legally, So when I was there, I was doing whatever they needed me to do, and I was getting paid low. So I remember that there was this Armenian machinist who they fired when I was there. Not fired, they let him go because they didn't have enough work for him. That's how this place was starting to just dwindle down. And they let me do what he was doing because they didn't need a skilled machinist. They had so little work to do. And I remember just the parts we machined for these schools, when I started, there was, he taught me what to do and he'd oversee me doing it, but it wasn't that hard. And he didn't have to do much. And it got to the point where there was another machinist working there. They decided they'd keep him, and they kept me. And I was not a machinist at the time who could do anything other than, and I used to sweep up and do whatever they needed me to do in there. And it was just a huge warehouse. I remember, huge warehouse. And but there was very few people. You could walk around there with very few people working there. And the bathroom was all the way in the front. And the offices were in the front. You go to the bathroom and then you come back down. It was just, you could hear a pin drop. It was so quiet. There was hardly anything going on. And they weren't selling much at this point. And I just remembered it was just, as the time went on, weeks went on, when I was working there, it was I started, there was some work to do. That's why they hired me. But then by the time, it was going on, uh, you could tell it was starting to get so. It was sad. You could see it, falling apart. And I got along with everybody I work with for the most part. Remember, I get my checks like on a Thursday. You get your check. Oh, they come by and they give you a check, and you go to cash at lunchtime. I was living paycheck to paycheck at the time. I was living with my parents, just beer money. So I go right to the bank at lunchtime and cash the check and go out to lunch or whatever. And I remember sometimes I used to go to the bank and the bank would say, "Oh, there's insufficient funds to cash this check." So I go back into work and I tell the owner, and he'd be like, "Oh, I'll look into it." And the next day he come and say, "You can go cash the check now. I put funds in there." He was just living enough just to pay us. And I remember I go there, and it was like that. That happened several times. That's how much he was just not even paying the rent. Paying his workers. It was sad. You could just see it going down, and I remember I was speaking with his girlfriend who was working there for years. I guess they were dating for years, and she was working, and she said, "Oh, I worked here for years, and years ago this place was packed. We were doing so much business. We had a day shift and a night shift, and I worked the day shift with him, and we got the dinner, and we come back, and the night shift was working, and we'd help out. Just to fill orders, and money was rolling in back then, and we were, everything was great, everything was fantastic, and it slowly started to shift because the computer was taking over a big portion of their business, especially with the slide machines, which I think was the biggest part of their big business. And I remember when I was there, for instance, there was we had to make some shelves or something. He was doing anything on the side. I guess his school wanted some shelves on wheels or something, so he bought these metal things on wheels. It was like let's build shelves, and me and his son, he said to us, "Go build some shelves on there and make it look nice." It was these 10 rusted metal things on wheels. We said, "I guess we're gonna have to drill some holes," and so me and him worked on it, drilling holes and putting wood on there, and going to Home Depot at the time. I guess Home Depot was new at the time, and buying shelving and putting the wooden shelves on there, and putting some padding around it and painting it. And we didn't know what we were doing. I didn't know what I was. I wasn't a carpenter, and neither was he. And we built these shelves. It was crap. The wood was such crap. We'd be trying to nail nails in there, and I split the wood open. It was just not. It didn't look good. And at the end of it, we said to the owner, "Here it is. You sell this? Who's going to buy this?" And he was like, "Oh, no, I got some guy who's going to buy it. Don't worry about it." And he took what we made, which was shit. It was crap. I mean, I'll be first to admit it. I'm not again, like I said, I'm not a carpenter, and neither was the owner's son. He didn't know what he was, so we just did the best we could at the time, and it was crapola. And I remember, like a few days later, he brought the stuff back, and he goes, "Oh, he doesn't want it." And I'm like, "Okay." So it just sat in the corner of the warehouse. There was enough room in the warehouse because there wasn't bodies there, and was sad that he bought these things to sell to this guy. And I don't know, the guy just told him to borrow when he was drunk one night. "Yeah, I'll borrow whatever I don't know. It was just sad. It was nothing. And I remember we got an order in for 10 new slide machines just out of the blue. And it's like everybody's going towards computers, and I guess this one lone school was like, "Oh, we'll order 10 new slide machines. What the hell, It was like the last order of slot machines ever in the history of this place. And I remember we were so happy we got the order, and we're drilling holes in it. And we're making. I mean, those were probably the best slot machines that ever made, because we put so much time into making it perfect, and because we were so happy we had something to do. Other than that, I was mopping the floor. It was just nothing to do. It was sad. And there was a machinist, an old guy, a machinist who was just, he had, you could just tell he was like just depressed. Every day he looked like he was hungover, just barely hanging in there. And yeah, I come in and the parking lot was a few cars, you know. Other than that, it was empty. There was a train that wasn't working, that didn't go by there anymore, you know. Trucks wouldn't come in to deliver anything. We didn't need any. We didn't need to deliver everything we had was in there already. And most of the shit we had wasn't going to be sold. I just knew that it was at the end of the rope of this place. End of, you know, it was, this place was going under quickly. Uh, and yeah, I was seeing the last days of this place, and you know, they want, you know, I guess they would fire the other machinist eventually. I think he went before I went, before I left, and yeah, it was just me, the owner's son, the owner's girlfriend's daughter working there. The Irish guy had left town. There was a few kids working there. It was nothing was, you know. And he was in the main office, and even the offices were empty. You know, cubicles in there, nobody in there. He was up in his office, and it was just sad. You opened it. Probably the electricity it caused to run that place was, you know, he couldn't even probably pay the rent. So I just remember a friend of mine, Tony Rivera, was a Swiss screw machinist before he became an electrician, but he was still working in a Swiss screw machine place. And I was talking to him, and I told him, man, the place I'm working is dying. And he said to me, we're always looking for help in the place I'm working. So he got me an interview. So I went there one day at lunchtime for an interview, and the guy goes, "Yeah, you want to start?" I go, "I could start Monday next week." And the guy goes, "Okay." And I walked into work. I spoke with the owner, and the owner's like, "Okay, you know, okay." And I was nice to the guy, and the guy's like, "Okay, you just work this week," and you know, I said, "Okay." And then I remember talking with the owner's son, who I got along with well. I hang out with him sometimes. You know, I had a few parties I went to between, and I invited him. You know, invite him. Yeah, he's a nice guy. So I said to him, "Yeah, I'm leaving. I gotta." He totally understood. He said to me, "I totally understand. I mean, you know, you gotta. This place is dying, and you could see it. You know, everybody's leaving." And I'm here because my father owns this place, and my father owned this place before I was born. I was born into this place. This place was here when I was born, and it was booming back then, booming, just a booming place. And yeah, I remember growing up here as a kid, and I was just, you know, there was just so much business going on, so many things going on. Everything was working. It was just a great place to work at that time, and we were like family here. And now the families, it's like, you know, when your loved ones die, it's like they're not, you know, literally dead, but they left. And you know, some you stay in touch with a little bit, and others you don't. Most you don't. And I can understand, you know, you got to go. You got to think about, you know, a job you're going to have for a couple of years, and especially when we pay you, you got to worry about getting paid. I don't think I ever got a raise in that place. Of course not. You could barely afford to pay me the extremely low salary I was getting paid. And I felt, you know, really, I mean, bad for the place because the people there were nice. Everybody there was nice, and they had a business that was booming at that time, and I don't know, it was being taken over by another business, and were they going to change and start selling computers? No, that wasn't their trade. That wasn't their specialty. So they, yeah, and you know, schools weren't, you know, buying anything from them anymore. It was like, you know, we're going towards this now. We don't need what you know you're offering. Uh, Sad, yeah, but I guess a lot of places through the years have been taken over by computers, and I mean, I know, for instance, the printing companies, printing has gone down a lot when people could print at home. I mean, there was a friend of mine owned a printing company, Pip Printing. I'm not sure if they even exist. You could buy a franchise, and he owned one. Him and his brother owned one years ago. before the computer took over. Everybody's got a computer and a printer in their own house, and he was booming his business. And now he's still a printer working for somebody else, but he does specialty stuff. But what they were doing, a lot of what they were doing back when he owned his own printing, his own PIP, is gone. A lot of that people are doing at home. So uh, that's probably why I got into the IT field. After that job, I was a Swiss school machinist for 5 years, and then I lost that job, and I went to the IT field because I'm like, I don't like machining anymore. It's dirty blue collar work. I mean, blue collar work's good. I'm not saying anything wrong with it. It was just dirty, and I just didn't want to do that anymore. So I went to the IT field, and I was around 92. I worked in the Swiss school place from 87 to 92. And that's when I started to get into the IT field, 92. But yeah, I did this job from 86 to 87. And I was young and, not a care in the world. So I came into work every day. I'll do anything, whatever you have for me to do. And yeah, I just remember watching the death of that place and just feeling bad for them, really. Because I don't know what they were going to do. Me, it was easy. I just went off and went to another place. They had this huge warehouse of stuff that they probably had to sell, try to make a few bucks, and I don't know where they were going to go. I mean, this guy owned this business probably for 30 years prior to that, 25 years, and it had went, like, I was told, booming business, raking in the money to nothingness, and yeah, I would like to know how long they lasted after I left. I never kept in touch with any of them, and what happened to the owner and his son, what they end up doing after that. I can only guess, but yeah, it must have been they knew it was ending. It probably, they even said we don't think it's going to last throughout the rest of the year. This is like coming towards the summer of 87, probably the spring of 87. Yeah, so probably didn't even last the end of the year. I don't know. So, yeah, and then they probably sold, like I said, sold everything and moved and just disbanded the business. And I don't know. I don't know what would have happened to them. But yeah, it's just sad when you see and when you don't. That's probably one of the bad things about owning a business, owning your own businesses, that you put your time and money and effort into establishing it, and you do it. It makes money like that did for years, and you think it's all good. It's just gonna come naturally. And yeah, you could make a lot of money at that time, but then after a while, you're losing money, and the place you're losing money with it, and a lot of money you made is going out the window, and you might have made a lot one year, and then next year you make less and less and less, and a lot of that money is being thrown into keeping the business going. So by the time I was there, I'm sure that the salaries he paid, the money for rent and electricity, and just keeping the place going, was more than he was bringing in, by far, I think, and that's where a lot of the money he made previously was going. So by the time he ended it, I don't know him personally how much he had saved away, but the business was broke and it was bleeding money. And yeah, so if anybody sees this video and knows the place I'm talking about, there's only a few people who probably even know it. And I doubt they're watching this video. Long Island. I don't even remember the town it was in. Bohemia, something like that, on the South Shore of Long Island, by between Sunrise Highway and Montauk Highway. Yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say on that. It was a sad time for them. but just another job I had in my stepping stone in my life, and had a lot of jobs. Job I've had now, I've had the last 23 years, but before that, I had plenty of jobs through the years. Many jobs that some longer than others. This was probably a little over a year, and even the year I worked there, I could see the massive changes just the time I worked there. And for them, it was probably way more evident, the changes that happened from when they were a booming business, day shift and night shift, to to no shift. And that's America. You start your own business, you be your own boss, but there's a lot of pitfalls to that, obviously. And for anybody who owns their own business, I give you kudos for doing it, and for however long you had your business, you at least tried, and you got to give you credit for that. I got to give you credit for that, and you kept it going for however long you kept it going, and it's tough. It's tough. It's cutthroat, cold-blooded world out there, and things change. One day they might love you, and the next day they're asking, "Are they still around?" Jeez, how do they keep going? How do they keep it going? Anyway, this has been JP Alexander for the Rabid Dogs Unleashed, and until the next time, ciao.